it's hard to get away from the fact we've lost far too many games. Like, if we lose to Liverpool in the cup, the season's pretty much over in March. I'd like to see him given the time. Me personally, I would like to see him given the time at least to the end of the season, and then potentially, or even to, like, if they just went, look, you've got until Christmas to, like, just prove us wrong. If we get rid of Luke Shaw, what are you going to do with Malacia? So you potentially need 2 left backs. That's very unrealistic. So the squad getting changed is going to take at least 2, 3, maybe more transfer windows to see it fully change.
Can't believe it. I can't believe it. Football, bloody hell.
So, welcome back to Football Bloody Hell. As you can see, we have a very special guest with us, a very new fan channel, looking up to someone of the likes of Adam, obviously over the years, the stalwart, and in YouTube, right, Sunil? You've met him before already personally.
Yeah, for everyone, all United fans going to Old Trafford back in the day, FullTimeDevils used to always be that channel. We wanted to come on, and for a few of us actually managed to get a few interviews done on the channel. So we have always looked up to Adam.
Thank you so much for being here, by the way. It really means a lot to us. It really does.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. Obviously, we've connected before as well, but obviously I meet so many different Manchester United fans that are from India, whether, you know, I've been over India a few times, or in the UK, or even just even on pre-season tours and things like that, and it's amazing the amount of support for the club is in India. And I remember just around I think it was just before COVID, there was kind of talk about potential pre-season game in India. I was so excited for the possibility of that, but it was a shame that it didn't materialize, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first question we wanted to ask you, so most of the opinions nowadays are divided on Twitter and social media. So what do you think? This manager is going to stick, or like the new regime is going to pick a new manager?
When you look at the table and you look at the cold hard facts, like, it's hard to get away from the fact we've lost far too many games. Like, if we lose to Liverpool in the cup, the season's pretty much over in March. That's not ideal for Manchester United. But then you look at the fact that we're changing things elsewhere. I think Ten Hag did really well last season as well. And so much has to change in the squad that I kind of think I'd like to see him given the time. Me personally, I would like to see him given the time at least to the end of the season, and then potentially, or even to, like, if they just went, look, you've got until Christmas to, like, just prove us wrong. Because I do think he's a very good coach. He showed that last season, but for whatever reason, this season hasn't gone to plan, and 12 defeats in the league is very, very damning.
Yeah, personally, I also think this is kind of a season which Arteta was having. And if you stuck with him, then the next season probably will get better.
And also the names being thrown around aren't the best, right? They don't inspire any more confidence. So you rather let this guy finish his 3rd year, or like you rightly said, Christmas. And if something like this continues, which hopefully not, but I think it can only go up from here, right? How much worse could it get? I don't want to tempt fate, but it's quite...
Yeah, and I think he's possibly the right man to give some time to. And you go through the squad, like, so... from back to front, so like every single position you look at, you go, we need a player in that position. Even like, I think Rasmus Højlund's an amazing player. We need a striker. Like, you know, we need a right winger or 2. We need midfielders. We need defenders. Like, every position we need players. So when you look at that, you kind of go, it's been difficult for him, especially with so many players being out. But then I think there has been times where we should have just been better. Even with injuries, we should have got results in certain games, and, you know, the Champions League form wasn't good enough. But I don't know. I think, like you say, when you look at some of the options out there, I think I like Nagelsmann. I think he's a good coach. There was a time when I would have held Tuchel in high regard, but not so much anymore. And I remember, like, the time when we got Ten Hag, it was basically go get Ten Hag or Poch, but like, go and get one of they just screamed at you, sign me. And I don't think any of the current batch of managers that are available do that.
Okay. So the next question is, what are the 3 things which you would want Sir Jim Ratcliffe to do, like, immediately?
I don't know what yet. But I'd like to see something done with the stadium. I'm torn on whether it should be a new stadium because I love obviously the history of Old Trafford, and being in the Stretford end on a regular basis is amazing to me. But obviously I've seen some of the stadiums around the world, and if Manchester United were to get to that level, it'd be great for all the fans associated with the club. So I'd like to see something done on that. I think you have to get a form of transfer policy in place, whether it's buying young potential players, but also when you look at the style of play that we've played under various different managers and the various different signings we've made, there's never really been a pattern. So every time we change manager, we have to almost rip up the whole squad and go again, or there's just been poorly planned. Like Casemiro was a fantastic signing, but you're looking at it now and you're going, oh, do we need to replace him already? We spent 60 million on him 2 seasons ago. So I think getting a good transfer structure and system in place is important. The stadium's one. Just to put trophies first, really. I think if that happens as well, I think he's pretty much said it. If that happens, United will be a success commercially, because we'd all be spending more money on different things. You know what I mean? Like the club would be much more successful commercially if they were successful on the football pitch. And I think he has kind of identified that. But talk is cheap, so let's see how it develops.
Right, because we've all, right, you rightly said, because we've all stopped buying the merchandise because of the Glazers and everything else, right? And you rightly said, the transfers come in place, the right players come in place. It would take a little bit of time, but something I was talking to him earlier, right off camera, and you mentioned this in the start of the video, so I thought it's a good time to bring it up. How quickly can you rip up this squad, right? I saw your last video as well. If you would have to get rid of, let's say, Maguire right now and let Varane go, Evans will go, you would have to still keep Lindelof, right? Because that's only so many players you could do. Luke Shaw, I personally wanted him to succeed, but I just feel if we could get a good price for him in the summer, you would let him go at like 40 million or 35 to West Ham, right? For example.
Luke Shaw's a weird one. Like, I don't think we fetch the kind of fee that we'd want, but his wages are so big probably, and when he's fit and on form, he's amazing. But he's very rarely fit and on form. But then you go, all right, if we get rid of Luke Shaw, what are you going to do with Malacia? So you potentially need 2 left backs. That's very unrealistic. So just by looking at like that one position, you're going to end up with Luke Shaw still sticking around. So the squad getting changed is going to take at least 2, 3, maybe more transfer windows to see it fully change. You're still going to have players sticking around that maybe you didn't, maybe Lindelof, maybe Luke Shaw are still part of the squad next season. I wouldn't even I think we should cash in, but I wouldn't be surprised if Maguire's still about.
Right. So I feel like the immediate success and trophies would still be in the next season or two, would still be like Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, right? To compete even with City next year in the league, I don't think we'd be there yet. We'd probably be as good as third.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I think that I'm a dreamer in it, and I think things can always change around very quickly. And when you get something right, and you start a season well, and you get things rolling, you never know what can happen. But realistically, you are looking at like we said, the squad's going to take 2 to 3 years. You're going to look at the development of Kobbie Mainoo, Rasmus Højlund, Garnacho, moving on and getting a little bit older and developing into the players they're going to become. And getting some player like I think Anana's beginning to settle, but there's still a huge question mark there. Getting the right partner for Lisandro Martinez, if he can stay fit, as well. There's so many different positions we have to fill in. But if you get the transfers right, you never know what can happen, man. You know what I mean? You never know. Momentum's so important in football.
Yeah. I mean, last season, right after the World Cup, we were in great run of form, right? Till Martinez got injured last April. That's when the slump came in. But yeah, you're right. That carried us through to the top 4 last year.
Okay, so moving on to the next few questions. I think these are related to fan channels. So what do you think, like having worked on so many channels right now and for so many years, what do you think, which model is better? Like a Goldbridge kind of fan channel where one person talks, or a collaborative effort where like everyone, like a lot of people give their views on the channel?
I just think, however, there's so many different ways that people do it. Obviously, I don't really speak to those guys there, but I do have a relationship with like Flex and KG and everyone on United View. I like the way they do things, but us at Stretford Paddock will always do what we do well, and I think a lot of us do the same things sometimes in some places, but I think because of the different personalities that you have, it's always going to be a little bit different on each channel.
But do you think because of social media and fan channels becoming so big, plus there are so many independent journalists who are now actually working on Twitter? So I'm asking, like, so the fan channels and the mediums like the Athletic, the journalist. So
Yeah.
because these guys have grown so big, so like everything Manchester United does like immediately comes out. There are so many leaks that happen. So do you think like these guys like partly happening because of all this, or like how is the way the club should stop these leaks? And
It's difficult because sometimes you'll obviously get players that are disgruntled and leak things through, whether it be through an agent or whatever. Sometimes it could just be, if you're a player and you say something to your friend who then says something, like, sometimes they're rubbish. Like, there's so many different things. Now there's obviously certain journalists you take and you hear what they say and you take it with like, you take it more seriously. But I think there are leaks, of course there's going to be leaks, but sometimes it could just be a cleaner or something. You don't even know where these different, there's so many different people that are working at these clubs these days. That it's maybe not always a player, but obviously I think players do use the media to their advantage. And I don't think that's a new thing. I think that's been happening forever, whether it's, trying to drum up interest in a transfer, trying to get better deal in terms of a contract. I think players and agents have always used the media, but obviously, we hear things so quickly nowadays that and there's so many more, and there's also online. There's so many just fake. Like, you could sit at home and tweet whatever, and get 1,000 retweets and it could be complete rubbish. You know what I mean? So right. I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's also simply because United is the most followed club, right? So obviously the number of fans, there'll be more stuff drumming up. But sometimes, when the manager's under pressure, the players are not doing well. I mean, you look at Chelsea again, and I think it's correct. They don't attack Pochettino as much. I mean, I know there are fans here in India who are kind of disgruntled with him, and they're okay to see him go. But, that's the right kind of model where you don't talk too much about it. You kind of quietly back him without saying something much. Players are not taking anything like crazy despite being dropped. There are a lot of players who are not playing and they aren't happy. Like, some of them have come out and said something against the manager, but it's kept respectable, right? And I feel here at United, it kind of always goes page 3, tabloid.
Yeah. I do think though this team at the moment, for whatever we say about Ten Hag and whether he's going to be the manager or not, this team doesn't strike me as a team that's just completely thrown him under the bus, or thrown toys out the pram. They always seem to be trying hard. It's just whatever we're trying isn't working, unfortunately. So I think this bunch of lads, whether they're right or wrong lads to go forward with, they don't seem to have deserted the manager, which is, I suppose, a positive.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. So, like, even I have strong views on this. Like, I don't know whether I should use this term, but what's your views on day trippers? Because even when I am sending, because we have now access to allocation of tickets at Old Trafford. So even when we send people, I hope they know the chants and they go and add to the atmosphere. But I don't want people just to go there and click a picture and do the shopping and come back. So what's your view on those so-called day trippers?
I think the club's so big now that you're always going to attract certain fans that maybe, are coming as a neutral and just want to watch a game of Premier League football, although it's probably not United they want to watch these days in that sense. But in terms of, like, people taking pictures at games and stuff, and I understand it, like, recording constantly during a game, or, it can be annoying sometimes. But I also think we forget how I forget sometimes how privileged I am to be able to go to Old Trafford on a weekly basis. You know, if you've been to Old Trafford a handful of times, you're so privileged to have done that. I remember when I was a kid and I had a membership. We used to go to probably like five games a season at home, and like being able to go to them games as a kid, like maybe once a month or once every other month, it was so exciting to be able to do that. So I imagine if I was a kid, I would have had my phone out constantly. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so exciting and I'm so in awe of what I'm seeing. So I kind of take it with a pinch of salt. I also think United's so big, you have to expect some of that. Now, obviously, it's better for me and it's better for you when people come and they know the songs and they improve the atmosphere and, you know, push the team on and all that. But I don't know, people support differently as well. I know some people that go to every single game and I've never heard them sing in all my life at a game, but I couldn't say they're a lesser of a supporter than me because I sing at the game. So I don't know, it's a weird one. I'm all for it though, and maybe when I was a kid I used to think, you know, people that don't go to games aren't as big fans. But when I go around, I've been like everywhere I go and I meet these Man United fans that are just waking up at 4 a.m. and to just watch a game and stuff. And I think sometimes I try and stay up for UFC or boxing and I fall asleep before the main event even starts. Like I wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think. So yeah, people support in different ways, I guess.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, we just did a first watch along for the Nottingham game last week, and yeah, it was fun because, you know, you have company keeping you up till 3:30 is easy than watching it alone, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Rashford and Bruno, like, should we like keep them? And
I love them, man. I get a lot of stick. I love them.
okay,
Build a squad around Bruno, right?
I don't think we should ever build a squad around one player. Like that, I think that leads to circumstances where we've been in recent years where you're relying on one player. But I'd definitely keep Rashford and Bruno. It's like, I remember when the Swansea game, when Fergie's last game, my dad said to me at the end of the game, like, we stood there watching them celebrate with the trophy, and he said, now you're going to know what it's like to be a real football fan. And I never thought that would come true, and like immediately it was just like, boom, here you go, Liverpool might win the league next season. Luckily they didn't.